And that was the number one thing that businesses don't do, is pivot. They just get stuck and they don't try new stuff. They don't take any risks. They don't gamble on themselves. They take the safe route and do what's working, and they don't do anything new.
No, What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Deep MCs, the podcast that seeks to push meaningful conversation to a whole new level. Whether it's for your entertainment or your personal growth, we appreciate you being here today. And now, on to the show. What's going on, Deep MCs? We have a special one here for you today. We have Weston K from RoseAnvil, 500 and I believe 35,000 subscribers on YouTube. The man, the myth, the legend, Weston himself. Weston, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, happy to be on the podcast.
Man, I am extremely happy to have you. So you're gonna have to kind of bear with me a little bit, because this is one I've been really wanting to do, and also I'm a fan. So if I get a little off track, you have to kind of just zip me back in, you know. We had an opportunity to kind of chat a little bit prior to starting the episode. But really, as I dive into YouTubers and try to get people to, I want to show a different side. I want to show a different side of the people that are making the content, and also just kind of talk about, you know, who you are as a person, your journey. You know, I know that what you produce, which hopefully we can get into in a little bit, is a little different. And I think that, you know, a lot of times the people that go there, they go there for the content. Obviously the channel is growing, but there's a lot of work, man. There's a lot of work that goes into producing these episodes and making these things week after week after week. And, you know, on top of that, you're running a business
Right.
as well. And I mean, that's I don't think people quite get the gravity of everything that a content creator really goes through on a regular basis. And I mean, I think there's no better person to talk to than you to kind of kick off this series. So tell me a little bit about, for the people that don't know who you are, aren't watching your content, how did you get into creating the content that you do?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird story, and it's kind of a roundabout way, because I never sat down and was like, hey, I want to be the guy that cuts boots and shoes in half. Like I didn't ever have that idea. I was in college like 6 years ago, and I bought a wallet and a belt from like some cheap store. It was like $20, and it immediately started falling apart. You know, like the layer started delaminating, the wallet stitching started falling apart, and I was like, I guarantee I can make a wallet or a belt better than this. Like both my grandpas were leather workers. My dad was a hobbyist leather worker, so I had the tools around to just make some leather products for myself. So leather, you can't really, well, at least back then, you couldn't really buy leather in anything but a 25 square foot hide. And so you spend like $300 on a hide, and you're like, well, I've made one belt and one wallet. Now what do I do with the other 24 square feet? And so I was like, I'm going to make some more products. I'm going to try to hawk them to my friends, try to get my family to buy some stuff. And, you know, I've made enough out of that hide to justify buying another hide. And right around that time, my school was having a business competition. And it was one of these things where I was sitting in the plasma center donating my plasma, because I'm like, oh, I can't afford college. I can't afford to eat anything but ramen noodles. I'm donating plasma. And I get this email, it pops down, it says like $100 startup. And I was like, okay, $100. What's this about? Open the email, and it's like, hey, we're looking for 20 teams to give $100 to start a business, run it for 5 weeks, and the winner gets $5,000. And I was like, hey, $100 for free? I'll take it. I was like, I just barely started doing some leather working. This will be an easy excuse to get some money, just like free money. And if I happen to win, great. If not, no big deal. And so I started, that's where I came up with the name RoseAnvil, was for that competition. And people are always like, well, so your name's not Rose, your last name's not Anvil. And I was like, at the time, I just made up a name because I didn't know I didn't expect it to be like this YouTube channel and this leatherworking business. I was just like coming up with stuff. And so the name RoseAnvil comes from, both of my grandparents were a big influence on my life. My grandpa was a really hardworking farm guy. He was a Korean vet. He like would come in the mornings to drag me out of bed, take me to work. And I was like raised on a farm, working all day, every day, basically since 8 years old. And so I learned a lot of like my work ethic and a lot of my hardworking skills from my grandpa. And then my grandma, his wife, polar opposite. She was just like the most romantic lady, and not like the like romantic on a date romantic, but just romanticizing everything.
Yeah,
Just like loved like all like the old like 1800s movies, and she was an oil painter. She's like won awards for being an oil painter. She had this huge 1 acre lot that was full of roses, and her and her mom would go tend this garden all day every day. And she was the one that taught me about like art, and she kind of opened my eyes to a lot of like the more artistic side of things. And so those two people were very polarized, and I learned very specific things from them. And so when it came to starting a business, even though it was kind of a joke name or like a off the hand name, I was like, okay, I'm going to just try to make this name represent these two big influences in my life. So I was like, well, I'm going to take the rose from my grandma, the more artistic side, and I'm going to take the anvil from my grandpa, this hardworking man, that's like this, you know, like the gritty side of things, combine the two, and it's an interesting juxtaposition. So that's kind of where the name came from. So I entered this business competition, and you know, and I work hard because I'm like, $100 is cool. I'll take that for free. But $5,000 for free, I'll work hard for 5 weeks for $5,000.
Oh yeah.
You know, so so I was like, so I busted my butt, and there was like a bunch of people that had a lot better ideas and a lot better concepts, but I ended up outworking all of them and ended up generating the most revenue out of all the teams. And so I ended up winning. And I was like, hell yeah. Like I just got $5,000 for free. And one of the stipulations, fortunately, was like, you can't use the money for anything but your business. You got to prove with the receipts that you spend it on tools and equipment or inventory. So I was like, well, okay, I'll try pushing this thing a little bit more. I enjoyed leatherworking. And so I reinvested. The business started growing a little bit. I was designing some wallets. And then I entered another business competition, won a little bit more money. And so at that point, I had enough experience and enough traction to be like, all right, let's try launching a Kickstarter. Because at the time, this was probably 2016. The Kickstarters were really big back then. And I was like, I'm going to just try this and let's see if I can actually make this my part-time job while I'm going to college. We launched a Kickstarter. It's on our like little teeny wallet and we sold 15 grand worth of them. I'm like, okay, man. Step up. All right.
Got something
like,
here. Yeah.
I can do it. And I was like, okay, so 15 grand, this might be something I could do after college. Like I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep growing this thing. And I was in the business school. So it ended up being this perfect combination of things where I was completely aimless in college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went into engineering school. I got to my final year engineering. I hated it. So then I went to trade school, learned a bunch of trades, learned welding, machining, metallurgy, felt completely aimless and lost. Finally went back to the university, went to marketing school or like the business school. And that's kind of when I started the business. And after that Kickstarter is like my last couple of years, I had cool enough professors that I was like, hey, I'm starting this business. What if instead of doing the assignments, you just let me do the assignments on my business? And I just conned all these professors into just letting me not do any assignments and just let me do my business. And so I was incentivized to work on my business. And I got pretty close to graduating. Everything was going well. And I failed one of my last classes. I failed the one class that I needed the most. I failed. So I had to go back eventually. But I got that all figured out. But then after college, I was like, okay, let's see if we can do this thing for real. I'm like close to graduating college. We need to either make this thing a career or we need to give it up and go into some sort of business related career working for someone else. And so one of my friends was a really big photographer, and she always complained about how her camera harnesses pull on her hair. They're not comfortable because wedding photographers, they want to carry 2 cameras on their body at all times because they don't want to constantly be switching lenses. They just want to grab a camera with a certain lens, take a photo, grab a different camera. And nobody out there made a good camera harness. And so she came to me and was like, make me a better camera harness. And so with the background I have in a more rural background and a more, like I was raised hunting and being outdoors. So I had this history of knowing backpacking. I do a history of like gun holsters and gun harnesses and all these different things that just happened to be in my life. That when I started to design this camera strap, I was like, hey, let's, instead of just doing 2 straps across the back, let's actually make it contour and make it comfortable for the person. And so we came up with this design, launched that on Kickstarter. And this was kind of the make or break moment. I was like, if this works, great. If not, I'm going to have to go find another job. And then the first day it raised like 50 grand. Then over the 30 days, it raised $500,000. And I was like, all right, So this could be it. You know, like maybe I'm the leather guy that makes camera gear.
Yeah.
And so we make all these harnesses. Everything's going well. Sales are going well. This is like 2019. The end of 2019 comes around. Coronavirus hits. Now all of a sudden, all these wedding photographers who had plenty of disposable income for an expensive, ergonomically designed camera harness out of full grain leather, they're well dried up. All of a sudden, nobody's buying camera harnesses anymore. And so I was like, all right, we don't know how long this is going to last. We don't have any orders coming in. Let's try to do something else. Let's try to pivot the brand. Let's do something that might help the channel out or help the brand out. So one of my roommates had a YouTube channel, and one of my really good friends has a huge YouTube channel called Jerryrigeverything, where he dissects phones. Because there's all these people out there reviewing tech stuff, phones, Xboxes, whatever. But he's the guy that tears them all apart and actually keeps those brands honest by being like, okay, is this actually the glass they said? Is this actually the processor? Is this actually the amount of battery they said? And so I go to him, I'm like, hey, you have 6 million subscribers. What do I do to get some more? What do I do for a YouTube channel? You know? And he's like, just do what I do, but with leather. And I was like, all right, I could do that. You know, like, what do I cut apart wallets? What do I do? And I was like, you know, I'll cut apart a pair of boots. I'll spend $200. I'll gamble on the fact that someone wants to watch this. I bought a pair of Doc Martens, cut them in half, and it didn't blow up immediately, but it got some good traction. We had a few thousand views, so it was justified doing another boot. And coming from more of a work background, you know, blue collar background, boots were kind of my forte, being like a former firefighter, former construction worker, working on the farm. So we started with boots, and every time we do a boot, the channel would grow. Every time we do a cut in half, people would be freaking out and telling us we shouldn't be wasting this, but also freaking out because they're finally seeing what's inside of these boots. Yeah. Because so many people have all this footwear, but they have no idea what's on the inside, how it's structured, what's the actual quality. And so from then, that was about 2 years ago, up until recently, we've just been cutting boots in half, cutting shoes in half, making wallets, making harnesses, and just digging down and getting it all done.
Yeah, man. No, and it's listening to you tell this story, man. It's kind of surreal for me, and maybe this is why I'm doing this, or it hits home for me more too, right? Because as you're going through the story, I hear the background behind of what's going on, but you can kind of see the evolution in the channel. So like I've followed you for, well, and I'm bad at this, and I tell people all the time, like, it doesn't take much to click a button, subscribe, whatever. Like, for whatever reason, like I don't do it, and I forget, because the algorithms always put it there every time I open. So I always automatically watch, right? And I've been watching you for probably, honestly, probably 3.5 years or so, right? Yeah. So you can see, like, in the very beginning, right? Like you had like the jewelry, and you had this, and you did a couple motorcycle projects and like stuff. And then I remember the first cut apart, and I was like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. But then you can kind of see the journey in the videos to where like the boots kind of just started to escalate. And now we're really getting into like the sneaker culture, and like it just took off one direction into shoes. Yeah. And I'm like, what happened to the rings? You know, what happened to turn a quarter into a ring? What happened to, you know what I'm saying? And which is not a bad thing, but you know, the evolution is there, and hearing the backstory behind it, like you can see, I can see where that transition happened. Like I remember, you know, visually watching that happen. And so it's kind of cool to hear the story behind it, you know, but also being able to see, I guess, how far you've come from like first video production to now. I mean, obviously you were able to move into a different shop, which was, I think, probably maybe like a year-ish so ago.
Yeah, I think a year and a half.
Something like that. I mean, I could be wrong, right? Because like the time that you release the video is not necessarily always the time that it happened, right? So for me, it's probably about like, you know, I don't know, like a year and a half ago. But even then, like coming out, it was very much just like, oh, hey, you know, there's this person. You almost like, I don't want this to come across wrong, but like you almost seemed like kind of timid initially in the first videos. Is like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Kind of like and I know it's like a weird thing to talk on camera, or to like be looking into this thing like with nobody behind it. I don't know if you started with the crew. I'm assuming you didn't, but to see you now, like, it's crazy how many different tests you have. And I mean, from, you know, burning the fabrics now. It wasn't really so much in the beginning. Now you're doing the drop bar test, right?
Right.
You're adding these things in, and you're incorporating more people, and you're starting to see more people in the videos too. Man, it's just so cool, and it's so empowering to see that, and to see
Oh,
like
thank you.
the growth. And you're so humble in
Oh,
doing it. And that's kind of like why I really wanted to start with you, because like whether you own it or you don't, like you, and I know you have friends that have more subscribers. Okay, great. But you've exploded in size, especially over the last couple of years, right?
yeah.
And to be able to do that and have your business and like continually say, hey, not only am I having success with what I'm doing, I'm going to continue to better what I'm doing. There's a lot of YouTubers that, we won't say any names, but they've reached a certain level of success, and then they no longer change the video. It's the same format like every
Right.
single time. And while you're still kind of accomplishing the same thing by cutting the shoe in half, you're always adding to, or putting in
Yeah.
something different, or how else can we test it, or whatever it may be. And that's awesome, man. So I mean, for me, your success, your
Thank
celebrity.
you.
I hope the channel continues to grow, but it is so cool to see that
Thanks.
evolution.
Yeah, I definitely don't feel like a celebrity in any way, because it's like I just sit in front of a camera and talk. And so
Mm,
like, yeah, even like those early videos, I still hate being on camera, and I still like, I don't know, because I think that's part of maybe what I enjoy about YouTube is I don't enjoy it because I like any notoriety from it, and I don't enjoy it from like occasionally someone will know who I am. I just like it because I like making stuff and discovering things that no one's ever seen with boots and shoes before. I like doing unique stuff, and I think that's kind of a big point of what you were kind of hitting on is there's so many brands out there, there's so many creators, there's so many businesses out there that don't pivot. If I would have early on in my RoseAnvil career, when I did the $100 startup, I was making like you said, coin rings and wallets. And if I was still doing that today, it wouldn't be nearly as successful. And so I fortunately had the mentors around me to help me realize changes in the market, realize opportunities, and be able to continually pivot and not get stuck on one specific idea and do it forever. And so that even manifests in, the way we make videos. Like, yeah, okay, the boots are doing good. I feel like we've kind of hit our cap, or we're starting to get to the point where everyone's seen most of the majority of the boots. All right, it's time for sneakers. All right, we're doing sneakers. It's not quite landing right. How do we make it more interesting? How do we make it more entertaining? Let's do the green screen. Let's add some more tests. Like what else can we do? What else? And it's selfish in a way, because I'm like, I want to keep things interesting for me, because it's more fun to make more interesting content and add some science, garage science to all these different sneakers and boots. But also it just keeps everyone else engaged. Like everyone, no matter what change we make, people still are like, oh, go back to your old style video. We hate the green screen. And then 2 weeks later, everyone's used to it.
yeah,
And so that's like, even in college, I did a little bit of business mentoring for other small businesses. And that was the number one thing that businesses don't do is pivot. They just get stuck, and they don't try new stuff. They don't take any risks. They don't gamble on themselves. They take the safe route and do what's working, and they don't do anything new.
No, for sure, man. And for anybody of your fans that's listening to this, I'm sure they can see and they know exactly what you're talking about. And hopefully the people that come in from this will also see the effort that you put in to your shows. And I mean, that kind of goes in the next question I kind of want to ask you. I mean, I do want to talk about YouTube a little bit in how you come up with these things. I mean, yeah, now we're doing sneakers, which for me, I've always been a sneaker person. I was born and raised in California. We wore a lot of sneakers, not so much work boots,
Right.
but being able to see, especially like this last run that you've done, some of those were like, it hits different for me, right? Because like I had those Cyrus D3s, right?
Yeah.
I had the shocks, and for
Right.
me, I always thought like, I'm gonna sound like an idiot, right? But I always thought there was like a spring,
Dude, same. I was the same way.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? So this whole time I just believed this myth that there was a spring in these, the chunky donkeys, like all the things that you're doing, like resonate. And I think that's kind of what helps keep it fresh, and what brings more people in is because you're hitting some things that like nostalgia wise, pop culture wise, whatever you want to call it. And people gravitate towards that. But I did want to ask though too, like how has that, other than keeping it interesting for you, which I mean, obviously is huge. We want you to continue doing what you're doing, but how much of that shapes like what you choose or how you go forward? I mean, like, right. Like you went on a Yeezy kick for a while. You did 350s, 750s, it goes on and on, right? The 400s. But like how much of that is dictated now by your interaction with your followers, or is that just something like you just, hey, I think I want to do this? Like how do you go about picking that?
So it just depends. We've got a really good friend of ours. It's our sneakerhead consultant who's just like so deep into sneakers and just knows every aspect of every little thing. And so he kind of helps us come up with concepts, but we'll also just kind of sit down and brainstorm. It's like, all right, what mini series do we want to do next? What do we want to show? And more specifically for me, being a small business owner, I hate like these huge Amazon companies, these big companies that overhype certain things that they're overselling something that's going to underperform. Yeah, and I hate that. You go on Amazon, you're like, this is the same product. One is $50, one's $20. What's the difference? And so I always just have a little bit of that drive of like, all right, who's lying? Which one of these brands is lying about this? And how much are they charging? And is it worth it? And so we just like identify like, okay, we did like Yeezy April, where we cut apart all the Yeezys in April. And it's like, Kanye's an icon, and he makes these sneakers, and they're like the most hyped up things in the entire world. You go on YouTube and you watch any review of any of these shoes, it's just the same lines over and over and over. Everyone's like, oh, Ultra Boost is this, oh, Flyknit is this, and this and this. I'm like, all these channels could be condensed into a single channel because they just talk about the same thing over and over again. Nothing's new. Yeah. They're all just talking about hype, and I'm like, all right, let's see if this is true. And so the more hype there is, the more I'm interested in seeing if it's true or not. Right. And so, and the more ridiculous it is, the more, like we cut apart the Chunky Dunkies, and I'm like, people are paying $2,000 for this. It's synthetic leather, and obviously they retailed for $100, but like all these guys out there with these YouTube channels, and I'm friends with some of them, like Seth Fowler, me and him have been friendly. We've chatted back and forth. A lot of them are solid dudes, and it's not even their fault, but it's just like, you guys don't know what's really in this boot or the shoe because the brands don't tell you what's in their shoes. And the only way to find it out is by cutting it in half. And so that's what intrigues me about it. I like doing something new and different, whether it's designing a new product that no one else has designed before, whether it's cutting apart Chunky Dunkies or $2,000 Yeezys or whatever it happens to be. I like doing new stuff. Right. And so that's kind of how we decide on it.
So here's the real question, man. So when you hit the 1 million subscribers, which you're going to, are you going to cut in half a pair of Air Mags, really piss some people off?
Dude, I don't know. Like we talked about like the Red Octobers, because I think they're like $20,000 right now. Yeah. And I'm like, that at 1 million subs, that might be the one. Like the one to find something that's got like really, really rare that's just going to piss people off that we cut it apart, but also be able to debunk some myths and stuff. So it might be the Red Octobers. We'll see.
Oh man, I hope so, because I mean that will be by far your biggest video if you pull that off. Right. For sure. No, but speaking of, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say people. I think people think the videos are more profitable than they are. When we cut apart $2,000 Chunky Dunkies, we don't always make the money back. People see 500,000 subscribers and they're like, oh, they're probably making millions. I'm like, no, we lose money on videos from time to time. And hopefully over the course of a few years, we recoup that cost with ad revenue. But there's a lot of times where we'll do a video and we're like, well, that didn't work. There goes another, because you have to take in consideration, like, okay, we have the shop that we got to pay rent for. We've got computers we got to pay for. We've got 2 editors. We've got a graphic designer. We've got cameras, and on the surface we might break even, but when it's all accounted for, sometimes we just lose money. And so
that's huge that you're saying that is, and that's, dude, you're sending my mind down a million different directions with this, because you talk about ad revenue, and for whatever reason, a lot of YouTubers are really weird around how much they make, and I get it, but from what I've seen and the people that I've been able to interact with, there really isn't a ton of profitability, if it's not done right. And I don't think that the average person watching really does understand that, and that's what makes it so much more special for me to be able to watch, someone like yourself, right? Who's you're coming up, and as you're growing, like you're still putting the same amount of effort, more effort, because you're continually trying to better the product, right? But that product comes at a cost. And so it's like, it almost is frustrating for me. I try not to get into the comments a lot, but when I see like negative comments on people that I enjoy watching, I'm like, guys, you have no idea the amount of work, like in order for him or her or whoever it is to produce this, well, now they have to have this person and this person and this person and this person who's paying them, right? And you're giving them a hard time, and you don't really understand how much goes into that, and for you to be, like I said, open and upfront with that, I wish more YouTubers would do that, right? And I know that it's kind of a weird thing, because it's like usually ends up being off topic. Like if you're a car guy, you're not talking about ad revenue. If you're a fitness person, you're not talking about ad revenue, whatever. But part of that growing, I think people sometimes they need to have an understanding of kind of what you're going through, but like, where is the medium for you to do that, right? You can't say, hey guys, I got something to tell you, it just kind of comes off weird, but I don't know.
Yeah. And there's like, there's some tools out there. Cause I didn't get into YouTube, kind of like what I said, I didn't get into YouTube because I wanted to be any form of famous or have any sort of notoriety. And sometimes, these YouTube channels, they'll be like, oh, I'm here to help you guys. At the end of the day, I'm here to make money. I'm not, the videos are fun. I like exposing some of these brands, but it's all about the money at the end of the day. And it's about the money and enjoying what you're doing. And so that's why we drive so hard at trying to increase ad revenue, get sponsors, increase the video quality to help the viewers enjoy the content, but also to increase our margins and our profit, because that's the thing. Like most of these YouTubers are not, they're not going to come out and say, because they want a certain image, but it is about money. And and the positive benefits of chasing money is better content, better quality, more unique things we get to cut in half, more in-depth dives. And so, and and the cool thing is, we have 500,000 subscribers, and because
don't
of how
forget
much
the 35,000.
Yeah.
535,000, not just 500,000.
Yeah. And so, we at 500,000 subscribers, we are outpacing channels with 2 million subscribers.
Oh,
we're 120,000 to 250,000 views a day. And I think that is because, we're everyone in here is just driving and striving and pushing to put out content every single day or every single week. And there's some cool tools out there, because the thing that, like you said, YouTubers are weird about ad revenue and like how much money they make and how many views they get, but there's tools out there that you can look it up. So like any of your follower or your watchers or listeners, they can go to websites like Social Blade. It's just a website that takes detailed notes basically of YouTube channels, and it'll show you an estimated revenue. It's not always right. And it shows you how many subs they get per day, how many views they get per day. And so you can always look up and see how much these people are making. And it's been a useful tool for us too, because we're like, all right, how are we doing compared to other channels that do similar content? How are we doing against these big dogs that have 10 million subscribers, And that's like a big driving force for me, is I like seeing the analytics behind it. It's like, okay, what's our click-through rate on this video? Okay, how many views did we get this time? All right, what is our ROI on this sponsorship that we did? And I think there's a lot of creators out there that are just focused on like the artistic side of it, which is important, but also they make content that's not optimized for the algorithm, and they end up missing out on a lot of opportunity and a lot of money, which in turn makes their content not as good as it could be.
No, for sure. And I'd agree with that 100%. You did touch on something though too, which I think is huge, when you said you're outpacing people with a lot more subscribers. And that is also like, it's such an intriguing thing to see, because I like looking at the analytics. Obviously I'm not looking at yours, but I do look at the views to subscribers and see how it paces across time. And it is very it's very telling to see, you know, where the dedicated fan base lies. And even at, you know, like I said, 500,000 or 535,000, right? You're 534 yesterday, you're 535. I won't forget 35,000 people out there. But even that being said, like I said, you do put up a video and you do hit, you're hitting, well, I'm just guessing, but you know, it's like 15 to 20%, right? In a day of your subscriber base is viewing. And you do look at these people, there's people that have 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. And a lot of their videos, man, not even close. They have videos that are still sitting at 40,000, you know, views or whatever it is. And I'm just like, come on, like, what does that say? And why do you not read into that? And it just goes to show, like, it's not just a matter of the amount of effort you're putting into the content, because that's part of it, but how good the quality is. I mean, looking at those numbers, it speaks volumes to what you do. So, I mean, I know you guys have a team and you probably already pat yourselves on the back for a job well done, but I don't think anybody ever really says, hey man, like, for someone like me who watches, like, we don't really get a chance to say fucking good job and please keep going, you know, in what you do. And I hope that it continues to tick off at that pace. You did something though too, like, it's kind of before it skips my mind because I will forget. I want to ask this because you talk about, okay, hopefully you get to 1 million subs, you do Red October's biggest video ever. I want to say, well, your biggest one you have now, your most viewed, is your ASMR video,
right? Yeah.
Please tell me how that came about, and how do you feel? Like, what did you, when you look at those numbers? Whoa, how does that make you feel?
It's so that's a weird one, because that was a training video for the first editor I hired, or I guess the second editor I hired. We just were like, okay, let's film a video. Let's like clean this pair of boots. It'll give you some good practice on how to edit, how to film, how to know, just work your way around the camera and the computer. Let's get this pair of thorough good boots and give them a nice shine. And so we record that. We have them edit it. We just like post it. We're like, all right, good piece of content. It performs poorly. And we're like, okay, whatever. Then like 3 weeks later, it just skyrockets, and the thing's getting like 1,000 or 100,000 views an hour. And we're like, we passed like a million views in like a month or something. And we're like, what is going on? Like, why is this thing blowing up? And then it just got to the point where it was so big that it gets recommended so many times that it just keeps churning views. And it's like, it's almost at 10 million views now. And it was just like this simple training video that we like barely tried on. And that's just like another testament to like, try new stuff, pivot, do new stuff, because you never know, like, because that one video accounts for 1/8 of the total views on our channel. And it was just like an off the cuff, like, all right, let's try this. You know, we have other videos where we try to do more of that ASMR style, and they've kind of popped off to some degree, but that one just hit the algorithm and just had the perfect combination, because at the end of the day, the algorithm and content it's not science. It's like reading tea leaves. You're just like shaking that 8 ball and hoping something pops up, you know? And sometimes the most unexpected videos pop off. And sometimes sometimes we'll have a video that pops off 6 months later and just out of nowhere it gets 1 million views. So that's kind of weird.
But you're honest about that. You're not the guy that's, I can tell you how to make a viral video, right? Within X many steps, right? Like, at least you're honest about it. Yeah, that is crazy, because I want to say, it is like 9.2 or 9.5 million views or something like on that. And I was just like, wow, like, I mean, I enjoyed the video, you know, this is crazy why it would do that. So I don't know. Hopefully you have another one of those pretty soon, man. Keep everything going.
I know we try to get some of those other ASMR videos to take off, because I feel like they are useful pieces of information, because they usually try to teach you how to do something, but they're just hit and miss. Sometimes they pop off, sometimes they don't, but that's half the fun of it. You just never know what's going to be your next million view video.
No, for sure. And if you ever need a deep voice to narrate, I got you free of charge.
I know you got a smooth voice.
Don't you worry. I will do it for you free of charge, just to help you kick off to keep going, man.
That actually would be sick.
We love what you do for sure. You know, I've put so many people on to your show, and put so many people on to like just your products in general. As a matter of fact, I was talking to my boss at the main job, and he was actually looking for a camera harness. I said, dude, it's without hesitation, you gotta go to RoseAnvil, obviously. Like, shit, right? Like, it's just one of those things. So, you know, what you do, I keep saying this, but it does not go unnoticed, right? And like I said, I know you don't do it for notoriety,
oh, cool. Thank you,
or whatever, but it could be easily lost in the grind, right? And I think a lot of times what we try to do, especially on this show, like we like to have some reflective conversations and really go deep. But I think a lot of us, we get so caught up in the day-to-day, and especially someone like yourself running the business and continuing making content, even with a team behind you, like you still have to have that presence. You still have to be there. You still have to have that input. You're more than just a talking head. And I think that a lot of times, like, yeah, we look at it, yeah, we can say it, but we don't really take the time to appreciate like the real quality that we're putting out. And so, I mean, I don't know you that well, but I hope that you take the time and really understand that like it really does hit home, and like
cool.
What your team is doing is huge.
Well, thank you.
No, for sure.
I think that's something that we're always, because it's easy to be like, okay, let's just make this easy piece of content, and it's easy to just slip into selling out and like doing boring stuff. But like everyone's always reminding each other, it's like, okay, what are we doing? Is it new and different enough? Is someone already doing this? Because even with the sneaker videos, every single video out there goes through the history. They go through the materials of what they think it is. They go through why they like the shoe. And so we're like, okay, we don't have to do that. Let's focus on what we do best and what makes us different, cutting shoes in half. So our videos are like almost like probably 90% just like material analysis and science and understanding, because our first few videos, we'd go through all the history, go through the hype of it all, the cultural significance, and nobody cared because there's 50 other creators out there doing the exact same thing. Yeah. And so, that's like a huge thing. So I'm glad it's being noticed, is like, every product we make, every offering we do, we want it to be new and different because people like that. But more importantly, it's just fun to make stuff that no one else has made before, or things that nobody has done in a certain angle. And so I'm glad that comes across, because that's a huge goal of mine, to just do different things.
No, it does, man. I mean, it's definitely something that you see and you do take note of, and I'm curious. So now that you're experiencing this level of success, even though the money's not always there in it, but it's becoming its own machine in a way. Like, how has that dictated your daily life as to where you had a small business, you were 100%, and now this video, like, where do you split your time? Is it 50-50?
Yeah.
Is it 60-40? Like, how does that work?
So I think a lot of people always assume that we're bigger than what we are. Like, it's for the YouTube side of things, it's me and 2 part-time editors and a full-time graphic designer that helps me manage all the sponsorships and does all these things, Brody, Nate, and Sam. And then we have 2 people in the back who are running the production, doing different things. And my days, I think it's so weird because like people view you on YouTube and they come up with their own assumptions of what your day is like and what you're like as a person. But my days are just like crazy chaos. Like there's like barely any structure to this. We're always like running around like madmen, trying to get things done, trying to get approval on stuff, trying to fix problems, shipping issues. And my day consists of just running around the shop all day, every day, putting out fires, filming stuff. And it's a fun chaos, but it's something that I'm trying to improve on, because 2 years ago, it was me and 1 or 2 other people. Like it was me and 1 part-time person and 1 full-time person. Last year, there was like 4 of us. This year, there's like 7 of us. And so it's this growing thing that I'm trying to make hay while the sun shines, like I don't know how long people are going to care about boots and shoes. I don't know how long people are going to care about leather. So let's grow this thing as much as we can while still maintaining the integrity of a small business by making cool stuff and unique stuff and making the highest quality content and products. And it's just this, and it's overwhelming too, to be honest. It's like, yeah, everyone always hears YouTubers complain about the grind, but it definitely is a grind. I work probably 50 to 60 hours a week on all this stuff. Like tomorrow, we were filming like a Father's Day video, and we haven't even started filming it. I have to film it tomorrow, edit it all tomorrow. And so my personal life suffers because of the business. And it's something that I think, because like you say, you like to go deep, so we'll go even deeper. My dad was a truck driver, and he was doing whatever he could to make ends meet and provide for us. but he wasn't around a ton when we were little kids because he was out there driving his truck, his semi, trying to get us food to eat. And so I saw how that was a huge inspiration in my life of how hard you need to work to get what you want. But also I saw that, like, I don't want to be that dad that's absent for my kids for the early part of their lives. And I don't have kids, but to me, I'm like, I would rather sacrifice 5 years of working 60 hours a week, set myself up and grind to have a lifestyle that I never thought I could have, and be able to spend time with my loved ones, spend time with my family, spend time with my kids. And that's kind of my big driving force behind it is I want, and that's why it's all about the money. You know, people love to flex and they buy all this stuff that they care about. I drive a Honda Fit and I'm currently wearing Birkenstocks with dad shorts and white socks and a shirt that my friend gave me for free and a DI hat. So, and it's a thrift store hat. And it's because the money it's more about, it's a gamble on my future that I can invest in now and hope that down the road I can reap the rewards of it. And
that's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. And the fact that you said that, as we're going deep here, right? The fact that you said that is huge because, you know, I've been kind of I understand the parent thing. Trust me, absentee father, barely mother, but also people don't understand the level of grind. And the fact that you even mentioned that is huge, right? Because for me, even like relationship wise, in relationships that I've had, you know, past, present, whatever, future, whatever you want to call it, they don't understand that it takes work and you can't half-ass it, you know, and then when you try, you end up with a really shitty product and a shitty relationship because you didn't put the time into both, right? And the fact that you're doing that, or you at least have the foresight to do that, is huge. And I think a lot of people miss that, you know. But as far as everything else, though, man, I think that you say, okay, well, I'm wearing, you know, the thrift store hat or whatever, yada yada. It falls into the aesthetic, right? I think you know, a lot of people, if people aren't listening to this and they're just watching your video, they just say, oh, this is the guy's aesthetic, right? They don't see the logic or the story that's behind it, per se, and what does go into it, you know. And it's pretty crazy that even for me, like, I don't make YouTube content, especially in the way that you do. I mean, we upload these videos, but I mean, come on, our audio is where it's at. No one's watching me sit at a table with somebody, you know, it's not an algorithm catching thing, right? So I don't really, for me, understand the amount of work that it goes into creating that visually aesthetic thing, right? We get our success off of how we sound.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But hey, you know, for you to acknowledge and for you to have that foresight and thinking, dude, like that even speaks volumes to the type of person that you are and what you want to accomplish, you know. And it also it humanizes you, you know, a little bit, you know. Because you're
that's the other thing is people assume that, you know, YouTubers aren't, and it sounds kind of gross to be like, oh, they think we're different than what we are. But like, I have my own issues. Like all through January, we barely posted any content because I was just in a really bad spot and I couldn't create content. And I felt like I was failing my employees. And like, you know, and every time I record a video, I like, it scares me half to death because it's like, you sit down and you're like, whatever I say is going to go out to like hundreds of thousands of people. And it nerves you up and it's freaky. And like, so it's, you know, and that's probably why some of those early videos you watch him and you're like, he's so timid and shy. And it's because I am. It's like it's hard to be in front of a camera, and because it's the easy thing is to put on a face and be like, "What's up, guys? Welcome to YouTube. Today we're cutting apart the chunky donkeys. Let's get into it." You put up that face, you know, and that's the easy way to do it because you can hide behind that persona, and it's not that I don't have a persona, but it's something I try to focus on is like, how do I be me in the truest form, not only because it makes more authentic content, but I don't want to become something that I'm not, because it's so easy to start falling into your own hype and your own thinking you're hot shit because you have 500,000 subscribers and you're like, oh, I'm this cool guy that can do what I want when I want. I got money, I got success, I got this. But it's like, no, you're just another dude that's afraid to record videos, that hates reading negative comments, that gets like, that has everyday fears and anxieties and depression. Like that's where I want to stay. I don't want to ever become this thing that's a version of a face that I put on for YouTube. Yeah. And because YouTube is weird. It's not, I feel like the human psyche isn't made to really acknowledge the fact that you're being viewed by thousands of people. And fortunately for me, there's a little bit of a inability to fully comprehend millions and millions of views, because if I did, and I actually sat down in front of a camera, like, okay, this will get at least 100,000 views. I don't think I could do it. But where I'm just looking into a camera, you know, it makes it a little bit easier. No, but it's still like on my mind all the time. I definitely am not the type of personality that would naturally gravitate towards making content. And it just kind of happened, and it ended up being a kind of a strong point, I think, but also a hinderment in some degree.
No, for sure, man. And I mean, and that's kind of why, like, I wanted to start this series, and I hope it continues to grow, not for me, but for the sake of the people like you, the content creators that are out there, the ones that aren't as open as you, but are probably suffering, are probably feeling that stress. I mean, do you know how many people won't say, I was struggling, you know, I was struggling mentally. I was having an issue. I was feeling I couldn't do it. I was feeling this. They do. They hide behind that persona because that's the persona that they've created. I don't know. I mean, you're on YouTube. I'm assuming you watch YouTube as well, but there's a lot of people out there like Stradman is one car reviewer, dude. Like his energy is always up here, you know? And I think he's maybe had one video where when his dad passed and where he just broke down, and it's unfortunate that he had to break down in that format as creating content, but you could see it was real. But there's so many people that they feel that they have to be this level of person, and it gets to a point where it's not genuine. And that's one of the things that I love about your content, because I can watch it and your emotions are kind of out there. Like if you think something's funny, like you can genuinely tell you think it's funny, you know, and that like comes across, right? And I think that people gravitate towards that. I mean, there's especially now coming through everything that we've gone through in the past couple of years and everything, I think people need something that's genuine. Mm-hmm. And to be able to see that like in you, or see the people that are actually doing it genuinely, that's huge, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's continue to do what you're doing, man. But thanks. I know, gosh, I could go on forever. I know we have an hour, man. So I kind of want to just kind of wrap this up for our audience here. You know, first and foremost, there's gonna be links in the description for Weston and everything that he does. So please help him out, support him. Let's get him to 1 million so we can piss a lot of people off. But plug everything that you have, man. Let them know where they can find you, everything they have going on.
So just RoseAnvil on YouTube. Just type in RoseAnvil to bring it up. And then our Instagram is Rose_Anvil. And that's pretty much it. YouTube's roseanvil.com. And the most important thing is go subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's the one, even though we get great views and we're outpacing bigger channels, the one number that sponsors care about is the subscriber count. And so that's like the biggest thing people can do to help out the channel and help us afford to buy these ridiculously priced, overhyped sneakers and cut stuff apart and improve our quality. So that's the number one thing. So thanks for having me on. It was fun talking. I think, you know, I haven't done a lot of podcasts, and so like I was nervous getting on this podcast, but it was really cool to just kind of dig into more of like the personal stuff and be able to kind of have a more open format where I can just chat instead of hitting like certain points optimized for the algorithm, just kind of sit down and chat. So I appreciate it.
Hey, no, I appreciate you, man. Weston, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you for listening, and let's get RoseAnvil to 1 million. What's going on, guys? Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We appreciate you listening for sure. But we need your help.
Yeah, we need your help. We need you to like, comment, and subscribe so that we can continue to make great content for you guys.
Yeah, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe.
and it's right here on the screen. Everything you need.
Right there. Thank you so much, guys, for listening.
All right, take care.